One of the most common automation metric is automation regression percentage, and management just loves using this one. Any automation team you go to, they'll always talk about this, especially in the management circles. And most of the time, the way this metric is calculated is extremely wrong. Management goes to the team and says, all right, so what is our automation regression percentage today? And the team looks at the test cases they have written in whatever tool they are using, if they are using any, and they'll say, all right, out of these total test cases, we've automated this much, so that's our percentage. And management flies away with that number, and the eventual goal becomes, all right, we need to hit 100%. So whatever test cases we've written, all of them are supposed to be automated, and that's considered as the ultimate holy grail for automation. Eventually this becomes a numbers game, and the figure that we are calculating is absolutely useless because it provides no real value to the teams. The only thing it's good for is showing in a PPT on a graph which looks pretty and everyone can clap around and be happy how we are so close to automation. But on ground, this has absolutely no value to the teams. Now, I'm not saying this metric is useless, but the way usually it's calculated makes it useless. And the focus shifts from automation, which is supposed to help testers, it starts to hamper testers. And that's how the metric, instead of giving any value, it becomes a roadblock. I have to say, for automation, there are other matrices which are far more valuable than the automation regression percentage. For instance, mean time to finding a defect and mean time to fixing a defect. That's an important one because that's the eventual goal of automation, so that we can find issues or give feedback to developers quickly. That's the purpose of automation, and testers can focus on stuff which is really important, where they can think instead of doing checking job. Now, if we have to use this metric, which would give us some real tangible benefit as well, then we have to calculate this metric systematically. So the first step here would be to identify the user stories which are part of our feature set. For each of those user stories, then we figure out the test scenarios that we want to regress for each of those user stories. I meant regress, which means for the first time we tested this story when it's being implemented. Of course, we have to go through an exploratory cycle and we look at different edge cases and all. But once that is in production and it's fine and it's okay as per what the user expected, then what are the very basic scenarios that we want to regress against each time there is a change around that feature or something related to that feature, right? So we should have that level of test scenarios. Now this is going to give us the list of test scenarios which are important for us. From here on, we figure out, all right, which are the tests which should be automated. Now that is a whole separate debate, and you might want to consider factors like scenarios which are highly important, scenarios which are highly repetitive, scenarios which are done easily through automation but take time through exploratory testing by a person doing it, and so on and so forth. And there's a reasonable list to this to figure out, all right, which ones are going to benefit, which scenarios would be beneficial if we do it through automation. So third step, which scenarios should be automated. And the last step would be, let's look at the scenarios which can be automated. You can cover this in the third step, but the point being, out of the list that we had, which ones are practically possible to automate? Not everything can be done. And some things you might be able to do them, but you know what, after you do implement them or you do automate them, they might be very flaky and they might take a lot of effort to automate in the first place. They might not provide the benefit of automating them anyway. So you need to be careful about what the expectations are from automation. Now, once you have this number, then calculating the percentage of tests that we have automated out of this pool is going to make sense, because now these tests are something which is eventually supposed to help the testers, which was the actual goal of automation. help testers take their time out of doing checking and mundane stuff, and they can focus more on thinking exercise around the testing area. And finally, the most important result that we should see is the mean time to find a defect should reduce, because the feedback cycle to the developer is supposed to reduce as we increase our automation percentage. So the next time you are faced with getting, or you need to figure out this metric, it's worth taking the time to build these fundamentals first, as to you have a solid ground from which we are calculating this percentage from, so that this actually provides some value to the testers and to the team and the product, instead of it just being a pretty number on a spreadsheet which is not going to give any tangible benefit to the actual delivery of the product.